The James Webb Space Telescope is now set to launch on Christmas Day, December 25th, a launch date that has been pushed back so many times that astronomers everywhere thought at some point will this telescope ever launch? So what's the deal? Now let's talk about how important this telescope is going to be, so what it's going to do, and why it's so complicated, so why that launch date is so sensitive and why it mattered so much. The JWST is set to succeed the Hubble telescope, a telescope that gave us eyes into the universe that we just had never seen before, such as this Hubble Deep Field that you see behind me. And the Hubble has actually only seen as far as about 500 million years after the Big Bang, which seems like really, really distant and really far into the past, and it is, but it's not enough for us to see the very first galaxies and the very first stars. In the very early universe, when photons finally began to roam free, so about 400,000 years after the Big Bang, this is where the cosmic microwave background is a point that starts that we call the Dark Ages. At this point, we have gas, so we have matter and stuff like that, but we still don't have stars and galaxies yet. And this is around when they begin to form, so let's say a couple of hundred million years after the Big Bang. Now, as time progresses, the universe is stretching apart faster and faster with time. So what happens to light that has been emitted from points over there, so let's say light from the very first stars, it will have been stretched out to a wavelength beyond our visible wavelength so that we can't see it in visible light. And so the James Webb Space Telescope is going to be looking at infrared light so they can see that wavelength of light. Another thing that infrared light can do is see through dust. So this is the Eagle Nebula in visible light, and this is it in infrared. Suddenly all these stars pop up that you just didn't see before. And so the James Webb Space Telescope is going to be able to pierce through dust as well. So one of the things that maybe we'll find is the very first stars, and the very first stars are the ones that have no metals. And in astronomy, what we call metals are basically anything that's heavier than hydrogen and helium. And so these would be stars that are just made up of hydrogen and helium. And we have not found these yet. The telescope will also be looking at things like exoplanets and planets in our own solar system, like Uranus and Neptune, that have only been visited by the Voyagers. And the reason the launch has been so critical is because this is the most complicated piece of technology that will be sent out into space ever. There are tons of things that need to be deployed and hundreds of ways that they can go wrong. It's kind of like space origami unfolding to make for a 6.5 meter mirror in space. It is also going to be located nearly 4 times the Earth-Moon distance at one of Earth's Lagrange points. And so we can't send anyone out there for repairs, so it has to go right.